was making art in preparation for Half-Life Alyx coming out, and then when Alyx came out, I started trying to figure out how I could rip the assets from that. There's a lot of qualifiers you can use to construct an image of what, broadly is being referred to as liminal space as a broad aesthetic. I think certainly there's a level to which a lot of the conversation is based in buzzwords and misappropriation of certain terms, but I do think that generally when you're, I think a true, honest look at what is falling into that category would sort of, get you into a space where you're viewing a lot of images of spaces that are pretty devoid of authorship, devoid of a clear sort of character behind the camera, a clear sort of, I think it puts you in a position, like a strong position, to take your own personal, faint memories from childhood, spaces that you know you inhabited at one point when you were 7, but you like a hotel pool, or the hallway of an apartment, or a distant relative's kitchen on a Tuesday with light coming in and hitting like an archway in a certain fashion. Little just environmental details that have soaked into your nervous system and stay somewhere in your brain, but aren't like used for anything. It's they're memories. But I find that when I look at these photos, they're very evocative of places that I can't connect in context. I can't place when I was there, or why I was there, or who I was there with. So when speaking about liminal space as a photography medium more than anything, I think the first thing you'll find is a sort of a blank slate feeling, a feeling of like very spaces that are just specific enough to really point in the direction of like, oh, I have something to latch onto here, but also very, very ambiguous, where there's no actual human presence to be found that you're going to sort of, feel, I guess, alienated by. So I feel quite seen by a lot of, what people discuss in the liminal space genre, but I think, when talking about the physical construction of these environments, I think some inherently obvious points to mention are that often, by virtue of them being liminal spaces, they're usually, I think in the true sense, would typically be like connective tissue locations. So like anywhere that's not a final destination, like a living room, you might have some trouble classifying as liminal space, unless it's like the living room on the last day you were in your childhood house before you're moving out to a new, like the liminality can come from a few different sort of vectors, but architecturally liminal would usually mean more like connective tissue of a building or a house, hallways, stairwells, pieces that don't serve an immediate function but are sort of, there and understated, and, yeah. I got into Blender, I suppose not immediately for film production, but just, I think it walks the line between film production, image production, game design, miscellaneous, just art direction, I guess. Because I got into it in the beginning of 2020. I was 14, and I started doing it just to like I was trying to rip Half-Life 2 assets and like try to do like I was making art in preparation for Half-Life Alyx coming out, and wanted to just try to and then when Alyx came out, I started trying to figure out how I could rip the assets from that and make little scenes. I wasn't using like sourced like Filmmaker. I was using Blender instead, because I was sort of allured by like the tutorials by filmmaker Ian Hubert and stuff I was seeing at the time, and he sort of sold me on like, this looks fast and easy and awesome, and I can go out and take photos of things and then projection map them onto objects and they look photoreal. For those who don't know, he has a sort of tutorial gimmick style that did very well on YouTube, sort of like these lazy tutorials where he would just like spend a minute rapid fire going through how to make something, and it just made it feel so approachable and fun, because he's fun and approachable. I think I've never talked to him, but I'd love to, and I think that like I found that to be pretty true. It's like I found it to be mostly I've never been much of a learning for like training the trade just to train it. Like it's usually been like I want to make a specific thing, or like I have a notion of a thing I want to make. Initially it was that Half-Life stuff, and then everything I learn is kind of like I'll watch tutorials, but then as soon as I think I roughly have an idea of how to kind of guerrilla style go get what I want in Blender, I'll go as far as I can, and then if I run into a wall, I'll search online for an answer. So I think it's that kind of like project-based learning I was using quite a bit, and then of course it helps that there's a million answers to anything you could run into online, either with people who are already established creators themselves putting out like resources online like Ian, or just Reddit, Discord servers, just other people in the same boat who you can have real-time conversations with. So I think it was like, I take it for granted a little bit because growing up on YouTube, you always see channels like Quarter Crew and stuff who are, so VFX driven that it feels approachable and it feels normalized. But I think it's really kind of been like the vector through which I've kind of propelled all of my filmmaking. I think that this film utilizes the exact same pipeline and like way of thinking that I've been doing everything with on YouTube. Obviously, we used Blender for these sets, and I literally just, when coming up with concept art for the the pitch deck, I just modeled scenes in the film, and so I could have them as images. And then when we started doing prep, I just talked with Danny Vermette, the art director, and we were like, hey, can I just do all of the art direction or like the set direction in Blender, and then do you have someone who can read Blender files or turn them into whatever format you need to sort of process them into blueprints? And he was like, yeah, this works great. So if you were to walk into the art department, you would have seen like on the walls like a mismatch of either screenshots directly sent by me, screenshots that they took out of Blender in order to capture certain like textural details, and then a bunch of I forget what they were using. Was it SketchUp or I don't know. I forget exactly, but they would bring them into proportional, accurate for like our sound stages and everything. Blueprint files, tons of random photos that I and them have come across just for art direction assets and whatnot. So pieces of furniture, liminal space photos. It just would be a giant collage of all that stuff, and so yeah, it really was like most of the direction was put into that file. Then you look at the file, and then on you ask the file the questions. Yeah. Myself, Markiplier, Curry, I think those are three wildly different, maybe not wildly, I don't want to speak without having actually had a conversation with everyone, but, I would presume there's wildly different, just inherent to life facts about each of us that make us use and leverage YouTube and these kinds of tools in a slightly different way. I think I can point to a very obvious common factor of like when you are working on YouTube and when you're, because you can work on YouTube without ever looking at your comments or looking at you can post on YouTube and then you can be a YouTuber, which are kind of, it's arguing semantics, but they're kind of two different things. And I believe like all of us to a certain extent have, like I wouldn't classify myself as a YouTuber who's like trying to, optimize content, and I never like do more than one thumbnail per video, and I never really aim for anything in particular. I just kind of hope that I've crafted enough of a niche online that people will keep showing up for that. So I've gotten lucky. But I think that like you get a very close relationship with your audience and you understand the contract you've signed with them, and I don't think you get feedback, and I don't think you should just kind of listen. I don't think you should take it like 100% seriously, but I think ignoring it is also depriving yourself of a pretty interesting muscle that I think we've seen as, it gets someone who is coming into the industry and coming into the world, and I'm 20, and any insight is helpful. And so when you have all those tens of thousands of people, talking about the thing you just made, you might be able to glean a little bit from that. That's an understatement, but I think that's quite helpful.